Hello, Stewart's Chapel. Brother Don Pierson here, and Don Counts. We're in the Stonebridge Park here in Fayetteville, Lincoln County, and this is Thursday's devotion from Jonah, chapter 1, verses 4 and 5. But the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship was about to be broken up. Then the mariners, the sailors, were afraid, and every man cried out to his God, and threw the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten the load. But Jonah had gone down into the lowest parts of the ship, and had laid himself down, and he was fast asleep. You know, for whatever reason, over the last few weeks, my attention has been towards boats and storms. This scripture about Jonah lets me know that some people can sleep in peace in the midst of a judgment, and they shouldn't be. The judgment is obviously on Jonah. The sailors are along for the ride. And Jonah knows the judgment is upon him, but he still is able to sleep at peace. I've never been able to sleep at peace when judgment or God's discipline hand was upon me, but I've known plenty of people that have been able to do so. I hope you're not one of those who can sleep when God's hand is upon them. A lot of people, a lot of pastors have asked me whether what's going on in our land is God's judgment or discipline. I don't know. I'm not that wise enough to know. If it is, though, then there's probably a lot of God's people that are asleep in the midst of it. And maybe they shouldn't be. Jonah was at sleep in the midst of judgment on the sea. Also from this scripture, I find that sometimes the lost fear when a saint should be afraid. Jonah has every right to be afraid. This is a great storm that God has sent upon him. The sailors are the ones who are afraid, not the saint. Sometimes the lost suffer not because they are lost, but because a saint is acting like he's lost. Sadly, that probably happens quite a bit. Someone else suffers because you and I are acting in a way that is not in accordance with what God desires. Another thing I thought about from this passage is God sends storms to disciples who are faithful, and He sends storms to disciples who are unfaithful. But the purposes and the reasons are not the same. If I'm going to go through a storm, I hope it's because I'm faithful and not unfaithful. You know, there's a passage where Jesus talked about the rain falls upon the just and the unjust. Storms come into everybody's life. That is just the way it's going to be. For some of them, that rain is judgment in somebody else's life, and they're in the storm because of that. Others experience the rain because it's judgment on their own life. Those are hard decisions, but I do believe that in some way or another, God's purposes of perfection are achieved. My rebellion hurts others. Every believer's rebellion hurts others. Jonah's rebellion hurt the sailors. They suffered. My failure to go and to tell causes others to be in danger, not just myself. And lastly, sometimes the lost do more to save the saints than saints do to save the lost. Let that sink in. Sometimes the lost do more to save the saints than the saints do to save the lost. My friends, do not be found sleeping when God's hand of discipline comes upon you. there was a great opportunity before Jonah, he really doesn't take advantage of it because all of Jonah could see was himself. God bless you, Stewart's Chapel.